This movie is K-Dog's movie review. The Exorcism is directed by Joshua John Miller and stars Russell Crowe and Ryan Simpkins. A troubled actor begins to exhibit a disruptive behavior while shooting a horror film. His estranged daughter wonders if he's slipping back into his past addictions or if there's something more sinister at play. Okay, so once again, I had little to no idea what this movie was about going into it. All I saw was the cover with Russell Crowe and the words exorcism, and I assumed it was going to be a not so good movie. Honestly, ever since the original Exorcist movie came out in the 70s, we've just been flooded with these types of trash. Once in a while we'll get a good one here or there, but most of them are just over the top, scream fest horrors filled with lame jump scares that ultimately end in a priest screaming at a demon, the demon causing shit to fly around all over the place, all encapsulated within the nothing story. And I was curious, although not expecting much, I was curious to see if this movie could really rise above that. Because now any sort of exorcism movie comes with a stigma. It's probably going to be shit. And so after seeing it, I gotta say, it was frustratingly terrible. Look, I will say this. The movie has a pretty decent premise. I thought Russell Crowe was going to play a priest. He doesn't play a priest. He plays an actor who is playing a priest on this haunted set, so to speak. They are recreating the original Exorcist, although they never explicitly say it. They say, oh, we can't say the name of it. I wonder if that was for rights or something. But anyway, Russell Crowe has got somewhat of a past, some traumas that he has to deal with. Like I said, the premise is pretty good. But this movie's attempt at Catholic exorcism popcorn horror just gets in the way of anything that's good about it. I mean, the movie starts off with a character dying. That's not a spoiler. It happens within the first minute of the movie. It feels like a scene that was just thrown in by the studio. It's painfully by the numbers. You got loud sounds in a house, and ultimately the person dies to some kind of demonic entity. And immediately after that, I thought, oh God, here we go, another one of these. But then the movie sort of presents itself differently, actually diving into our characters and their interactions. And I thought for a second, is this a real movie? Like a real good movie? And it continues with this pretty decent premise and surprisingly good acting by our two lead actors, Russell Crowe and his daughter in this movie. But then it just goes off the rails for the last, I would say, 40% of this movie. It kind of got to the point where it was pretty comedic, actually. I was laughing my ass off in the theater while someone else in the corner was audibly snoring. It got really hammy in the end, and that I kind of loved. But this sort of juxtaposition between an actual character drama that could lead to a good horror movie and the cliched exorcism garbage that we got in the end just sort of made for a mess. Going into it, like a lot of people, I think you can appreciate hot garbage in a fun way. But this movie sort of forgets that it is hot garbage until, again, the very, last third or fourth of the movie. So you can't really enjoy the whole thing in a so bad it's good. You can enjoy the last half an hour or so, because I will say in the beginning parts of this movie, there is some legitimate tension. There are certain scenes that are executed pretty well. I love the use of lighting in this movie. I will say, like most horror movies, the apartment is terribly dark that they live in, but you know what? That's fine. It makes for a cool, creepy atmosphere. And there are characters in this movie that I actually care about. And I cared about learning about their backstory and seeing where they'd go with it. But the way in which this movie just falls off a cliff is monstrously bad. It's almost like the writers wrote half of the script and then they decided, you know what? Let's take a baby off the street and have the baby write the rest of the script and see how it turns out. It's just horrible. It just feels so weird to me that A movie that even self references itself multiple times as a character drama, it fails to really pay off any of that at the very end, leaving me laughing, but also frustrated at what I was watching. And as I said, the acting is actually surprisingly pretty good in this until it gets just too hammy and stupid. I mean, Russell Crowe, he's proven in the past that he's a really good actor and he does a really good job here. And there are scenes in which he is carrying the movie emotionally. But then at the end, when shit's flying and people are screaming and priests are being stabbed, it just becomes total dog shit. I'd also say the daughter in this movie, played by Ryan Simpkins, she has a ton of screen time in here. She is pretty much the co lead to Russell Crowe. She does a great job. But a nitpick I have about movies is when they introduce a character as being somewhat of a rebel or, like a student that got expelled from school, like in this movie, you'd expect them to have somewhat of an edge or, be really distant. But in this movie, they're like the nicest person ever and they do their job really well. I hate when movies do that to introduce a character. Oh, they're so bad. They got a bad backstory. But the character just doesn't fit that description at all. I wouldn't have ever believed that that character was expelled from school having watched this movie. And similar to the lighting, I actually appreciated some of the cinematography and the setup of our scares in the first half of this movie. At the end, it turns into complete garbage, but at the beginning, there were some things that I found legitimately creepy. It's one of those movies where like half of the set is lit, and so you're sort of looking for things in the background in the darkness on the other half. And I like that stuff. I thought that was pretty well done. I don't know. I was thinking I could go into a half-hour rant about how bad this movie is, but it's really tough to say that because the beginning is garbage. That first scene is garbage. But like from minute 5 through minute 70, it's pretty good. It's weird. It's very like I'm pretty frustrated right now because I wanted to see where they would go with the trauma that Russell Crowe was dealing with and how he could overcome that and the trauma of his child. But the way in which they did it was just so bad. And again, it ultimately becomes another terrible Exorcist movie. It's all of the tropes that we've seen before. Oh, it's so funny about a lot of Exorcist movies that this movie also does. It has the audacity to like paint itself as being so over the top and so serious and just so emotional at the end when things are happening, where it's like we're just watching complete schlock at this point. Like we're not watching anything decent. It's really interesting. I'd almost like to watch a documentary on the making of this movie because I really want to know what happened here, because there are parts where we actually explore our character's psyche and seems like an actual legitimately good horror movie. But then it just goes off the rails. It's really baffling. And so ultimately we have a movie that fails to commit. It fails to commit to being an over the top dumb exorcist movie, and it fails to commit to being a actually good character study. And so for that, I can't recommend this at all. Once again, I have to ask, who was this made for? Because fans of the original Exorcist will get upset at this movie because there are a lot of references to the making of that movie and how great it was. We're just reminded that we're watching something inferior to it. More fans of modern day horror will be upset at a lot of the beginning of this movie because it is more of a character drama. Fans that want something fresh and unique aren't getting that here. It is really a failure on every level. If you had to really ask me what do I think happened, I think that the writers, whoever it is for this movie, wrote a actual character drama and the studio found out, hey, there's no scene where Russell Crowe body slams his daughter. We need that. Hey, there's no scene where Russell Crowe stabs a priest in the head with a cross and that priest erupts in flames. We need that. Please let me know what you guys thought of this movie in the comments below. Did you even see it? Because I'm not seeing a lot of reviews about this movie. There has been little to no buzz about it. Maybe the studio also knows it's complete shit. Did you like it? Did you hate it? Do you have any idea what happened halfway through? Because well, I don't know what the hell happened. Did the writer's strike affect it? Who knows? Till next time.